would pop whenever they used the, actually I think it was an air fryer or something to that effect. So it's just an added level of security. Who wants to have water in their basement, right? So I'm gonna go through the basics of the ibasement and the installation process for you. First of all, the primary reason, okay, all the bells and whistles with the ibasement, the primary reason to install an ibasement is to be able to take action when there's a failure of that switch. Okay, that Wi-Fi is great, notifications are great, but the primary reason to do it is to take action. That's the only, this is the only thing on the market that does that. Okay. If customer doesn't have a Wi-Fi, do I still need to get an ibasement? Absolutely. Absolutely. You want to make sure that if there's a problem, that their home's going to be taken care of.
That you're selling peace of mind.
Absolutely. And that goes without saying, just having a conversation with the homeowner. Okay. Other thing, when we're developing ibasement, we developed it, if this fails, if that unit fails for whatever reason, the 16-year-old kid shooting a BB gun at the ibasement. Once, I've heard one story of that already. And it fails. Guess what? It fails open. Okay? Which that means the whole system's gonna work just the way it's designed, regardless of what happened. If that unit fails for whatever reason, it's gonna fail open. That way the pumps are still gonna work. We've even, in a certain circumstance, there was a flood. The homeowner was right next to a river that flooded. They ended up getting 4 or 5 feet of water in their basement, covered the ibasement. The ibasement was underwater. Okay. Water receded. They plugged it back in. I got a video of it where they powered right back up. They connected it to Wi-Fi. Worked fine. We ended up sending out a different unit just to be on the safe side, but it worked absolutely fine. It was part of Kentucky floods. Also, test the pump each week. Okay, so from whenever it boots up, when you first power the system up, it will test it a week from that point. Okay, every time. If you power down the system and then power it back up, it's going to start from that point. It monitors the health of the pump by monitoring the amount of amperage that's drawn through the pump. Okay. It'll also monitor the battery level. If the battery level gets, I think it's 10.5 volts or lower, it's going to send out a little battery alert to you as well. It counts the cycles and the hours. Now guys, remember when you're looking at the cycles and the hours, for a pump to run for an hour is a whole lot of cycles. Typically we're talking about relatively short spans of the pump running. The most important part of this is the high water alarm in it. Okay, so if that gets tripped, if that gets activated, if you have 2 pumps installed, both pumps will turn on. If you have 1 pump installed, 1 pump will turn on. You get audible and email text alerts. You can add up to 1 or 2 pumps with it. You can install it with either 1 or 2 battery backups with the inverter. Okay, it won't work with a battery, a 12-volt pump, but if you're using the inverter setup with our fast sumps, it'll run both of them, and it's got a 3-year warranty. So one of the things that we recommend whenever we're installing any system is also setting up a 20 amp dedicated line to it. And like I said before, it's up to 2 pumps. It'll run on any of the inverters that we sell through Basement Depot. The only thing it won't run is the 12-volt pumps. It doesn't matter if the customer has Wi-Fi or not. Okay, if they have the pumps in, we should be putting in an ibasement with it. Steps to installing it. First part is setting up the wiring with it. Just setting it up, putting the floats in. I'll go over that in a few minutes. Second part is connecting it to the Wi-Fi. And the third part is registering the information for the homeowner on iDataBasement. Okay. This is the iBasement, relatively simple, 2 buttons. Okay, test. Test does just exactly what it says. You hold down the test button, it'll run a test, make sure that the amperages are running properly for 1 or 2 pumps, whatever's installed. Silence button, if you hold down the silence button for 5 seconds, it'll stop any of the beeping that happens. Say if you tested a high water float or something like that, that will silence that as well. 2 lights on it. Blinking green light just means it powers up. If there's no blue light, it means it's not connected to Wi-Fi. If it's a solid blue light, it means that you're in the configuration mode. If it's a flashing blue light, it means it's connected to Wi-Fi. So, in the manufacturing process that we do, we try to make it as simple as possible where we can't mess up wiring up the ibasement. Okay, the battery backup line, that's the only place it'll fit. The switches, the only thing you can do is switch the primary and the only thing you can do by accident is switch the primary and the secondary pumps. The AC power for the pumps, AC power for the ibasement.
If you do that though, Chris, it'll alert.
Well, as soon as you do a test, it'll alert.
It'll alert. Yeah. So you'll know if for install error.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. And then part of, and I'll get into this towards the end, pulling up on the high water float, making sure what turns on first.
Yep.
So in the troubleshooting side.
Are you guys able to hear him really well back there? Are you hearing him at all?
Yeah.
Making
We
sure.
have a microphone.
Okay. Do you just need me to speak up a bit, or? Okay.
So if the customer's switch dies on their primary pump, I know the ibasement will take over.
Yep.
Does it take over for only a finite amount of time? I'm asking because if we're can't get out there till the next day, for example.
So it'll constantly
Okay.
take over. What's happening is there's a high water float. When that high water float is hit, number one, it's going to send out an alert to not only you, but the homeowner, you, the contractor, and it's going to turn on either 1 or 2 pumps in that circumstance. Okay.
For as long as you need it to.
Yep.
Just think of it as a whole nother switch.
Perfect.
Yep.
And you want to get out there as quickly as possible
Sure.
with it, because it's also letting more water get into the sump pit, because typically the high water float is higher up. So that's the only downside to it.
Robert, we've had some customers where, they call on a Saturday and, something's happening and we charge an emergency fee to go out and they don't want to pay it. And they're like, all right, well, we'll be fine till Monday. And they'll just deal with it till Monday. We go Monday morning, take care of the problem. And it's either a cheaper service call or it's something under warranty.
Right.
So we've even been able to defer that because, a customer didn't want to pay the $500 for us to go out or the $400 to go out.
But in order for the float switch to work, it can't be like a Zoller with the one plug. It has to have the 2 plugs. Okay.
So the float switch we have is proprietary to it comes with a kit with the ibasement.
No, he meant like a Zoller pump that doesn't have a separate switch.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what it
yeah,
is.
the only thing,
Zoller pump.
it's not designed, one of the Zoller pumps use way too much power. So that's one of the.
Well, I was wondering, so like if a customer calls me like, hey, I like this ibasement, I just bought a pump from Home Depot, put it on, and they don't have the 2 plugs,
No.
it won't work.
It won't, yeah.
Okay, so that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
A lot of pump companies are getting more smarter though. A lot of them are providing that now with a separate switch than the
Yeah.
pump. It's just
What
not all of them do though.
Liberty does.
Liberty
Most of
does.
them.
Little Giant has some that do.
Yep.
Barnes has some that do. Pro Series does. Like a
Yep,
lot of
yep.
them do.
Okay. Oh, sorry. So there's actually 5 different ways to wire things. First of all, the ibasement, the AC plug always plugs in to the outlet. Then there's a power cable, a piggyback cable that plugs in to the ibasement, goes into the AC power, and you plug the pump into that.
Would you like us to move your table over so that you can demo from it?
It's not a full.
No, we butchered.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing fine. Good.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I know some people are visual learners.
Yeah, and this slide, just let me know. I can text this to you as well for any of your technicians. This is probably the most popular slide that I send out to people who call me. It's on my favorites on my phone. It takes 2 seconds.
And you have the photo stream too, the guide that you.
And we wait.
Blue lights on,
Because does that say iBase when it says it's Wi-Fi?
Does it say iBase?
Yeah, is it one of the units that say iBase?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so it's
No, I haven't done that.
Yeah. Like, oh, shut up.
Of course, it's when you're in front of everyone, everything goes
Hey,
slowly.
it's happened to me twice, dude, so it's all good.
Power off for 10 seconds.
There's a process, the
Yeah.
unplug, the reset, hard reset, refresh the app. Once the app refreshes, then you start from scratch, and then it'll go back in.
I always tell people to move slow, you're right, start from the very beginning.
Yeah.
If you've got it configured to something different. Make sure the Wi-Fi is really up.
Yep, it is.
Your phone connected.
Yes. But we're not even to that point yet.
Oh, there
Oh,
you go.
there's the blue light.
Okay. So
Blue
it's just gonna
light's
take a
flashing.
second. That's gonna come up.
There we go.
Oh, see how
There
they
you
turn blue when you're
Sorry
connected?
guys,
Yep.
it's right behind
So
you.
as
Like-
soon as it's connected, the top turns blue. Now here's where you're setting the customer ID. Each company does this different, but whatever way, if you want it to be the customer number, there's companies that have started with 0001 and have worked up and track how many they sell by the customer number. However you want to do it, it has to be 8 digits or less, and it has to be numerical. It can't be any letters in it.
Yeah, so just kinetic basement. They don't use custom numbers like we use, like property numbers. So he started with iBasement 1, iBasement 2, iBasement 3, and he numbers his iBasements, you know, in order, and then in the customer comments, he puts which unit is at the house. So he can go back and go, all right, this is this customer, this is that customer. So there's multiple ways of doing it.
And you can, and I'll show this in iData Basement, you can search via name of the customer as well, so you don't necessarily need the customer number for that. This is where you're setting the parameters of the pump. So if you just have one pump, you can just switch backup pump off. And that'll switch that one off. If you have a Pro Series pump, the parameters are 2090 if it's a fast pump, it's 2080, okay? Same thing as been for quite a while. This will go in and confirm the customer number, confirm the parameters of the pump. If there's anything wrong, you can just go into edit settings and then change those settings. And then this is where we're connecting to the Wi-Fi. So I'm connecting to my phone. You put in the password. I strongly suggest when you first start this process, when you get the information from the homeowner, their Wi-Fi name and their password, go onto your device, connect your device to their Wi-Fi, put in the password, make sure it works. This is the biggest reason I get phone calls, and it's always the iBasement's fault that the password's wrong for the Wi-Fi. And believe it or not, there's 2 Wi-Fi signals that come off of most Wi-Fis. One's a 5G, one's a 2G. Just recently I found out.
6G now. Yeah.
Is there?
Yep.
Um,
And it rotates.
really?
Good.
The 2G and the 5G can actually be different passwords. This connects to the 2G. So if you're running into an issue, that could be something that pops up as well. It's rare. I think I've had 1 or 2 calls since I've started this about that.
And you know, Chris said to test it, that's important. Because you've had customers literally like, no, that is my password. And you're like, it's not working. And then you go to the box and it's the stock password. And they really think it's a whole different one.
Yep.
So always test it.
It's very common for the homeowner not to know the password or have the wrong password. So in this is the last page. And we just end up waiting to make sure that the blue light starts flashing. If the blue light starts flashing and there's no beep, it's connected to the Wi-Fi without an issue. Okay, you're squared away. So you have 3 options here. One, if it didn't connect, you can hit retry and go in and reconnect to the Wi-Fi again with maybe the correct password. Done will finish it. Email will bring you to iData Basement, which will allow you to get into the second or to the third part of registering the information, the phone numbers and the emails. So I'm going to go into that. This is a screen that'll come up, and you literally just click on. Oh, sorry, I should go back. Click on the hand with the I'm gonna say an iPhone for all those Android users.
It does look like an Android though, so Tony drew that right there.
So Tony likes Android. We'll just leave it at that.
Computer engineer.
That's because he can hack it.
Oh, jeez. You Apple people. You guys got to get with the times and go get with the smartphone.
So this process is simple. Basically, you put in a MAC address, you hit search, then you put in the customer's information, name, customer ID. You won't have distributor ID, address, city, state. You put in the emails. You can put in up to 2, the cell phones. Now, every contractor also has an email added to our system that will automatically get notified as well of any alerts that come through that are set up to that contractor.
It's like a catch-all.
And so it's a catch-all for it, so you can go back to that email and go look at things. Some people use it on their primary email, some people have a set email just for alerts. Whatever works best for your company. Pioneer has a set email that you go in and all it is the alerts.
It's actually Pump Geek Alarms at Gmail because we use Pump Geek, but yeah, that's awesome.
It's very important here that you hear what I say about this. It's best right now if you do not tell your customers that it notifies you. If you put your stuff in there and notifies you, that's okay, but don't let them know. Because you want to, it's their responsibility to get the alert and to call us. It's their liability. So the reason for this is in the near future, there'll be a way for you guys, you companies, to be able to charge a monitoring fee each month to pay for a deluxe service that, you know, that to get notified. The customer is going to have to pay for that, and so anyhow, that's the thing. Don't leave the responsibility right now on them to be notified, even though you can monitor, but it's really their responsibility.
If you want to be a hero, some of the first ones you put in, contact them and go, hey, I noticed there's a problem with your pump. Like, oh my God.
Well,
It's the best.
Funny you should mention that. Mr.
They get so
Crawford
happy.
over there had a funny story for the ibasement that was hilarious for me. Was he had called someone to tell them that their pump was messed up because he got the alert and they didn't know. Hey, we just got an alert on your pump. I'm gonna go over there and check it for you. I'm not there. I didn't know. And
In the emails, you can also add the alerts that the customer sees. My suggestion, even if they only have one pump, to make sure that you have the backup there, because every time that they get a test alert every week, it's going to show, as Mike was saying earlier, it's going to show backup pump not installed.
So if they actually call us and say, hey, I don't want to get this alert, you can take it off.
You can take it off if you want, if the customer wants to. The default I typically recommend is keeping it on. It does help sales across the board. I've seen that from multiple companies, not just Pioneer. Dave's had some sales that way. I know Tim from Adam's company has had a sale that way as well. So
Well, it's a weekly test that shows that they don't have a backup. So it's not like you can say, oh, I don't want you to remind me. It's like, it's part of the
Yeah,
test.
you can't stop it.
It's like, do you not want to have your test results? You know?
Yeah, you can pick and choose what you want to send to them if the customer's really upset on that side of things. On the cell phone, you have to pick the carrier. If the carrier's not here, just do a search for the tower that carrier uses. If it's like US Cellular, just do a Google search. What towers does US Cellular use? And then just pick one of the 4 there, because these are the 4 towers that are set up throughout the US.
You lost. It's that.
all right, Chris, you're not.
Yeah, no, that Y is finicky.
I still think it's Chris's fault. I'm saying.
No, it's good.
There you go,
It's
you
good.
got it.
Yeah,
Samsung would do that wirelessly anyways, but
yeah, it does.
I love how Android people have to convince themselves.
also so would Google, and I think even Kyocera would do it, even believe it or not.
I got an old Nokia. You can figure it out.
You'll need to continue.
Siri's like.
Was that a Siri malfunction?
Nice.
Okay, Droid users.
Smartphone user. I'm sorry.
And any question on the iData basement side or the app going through it? Okay. Who here has used the app already? Dave, I know you've used the app.
No, yes, I use the app. I use the app, I use it all.
I know you use the app. It's relatively simple, very few glitches that we run into. If there are glitches, you basically power down, power up, and it's fixed, like any other device that uses electricity.
Did you want to tell them about the reset?
It's in a second.
It's on the agenda. We'll get there.
He's ready.
You've talked to me too much.
I think he talks to you just enough.
So this goes back, so we're just gonna click done here. This goes back to the make configuration page. If you're going back into a home, after you've already set up the iBasement, you can go into find IB and find iBasement. And I'm not sure if this is gonna connect because it's off of my phone.
You gotta connect to your phone's Wi-Fi.
I did, but
Should find it.
yeah, I should find it.
Welcome to lab.
Well, because it's going off a cell phone hotspot, and it's not really the best service here.
Yeah.
Is that an Apple?
So Blue Light
They're all
Splash,
connected.
so it's already
wow,
connected to
yeah.
the Wi-Fi. All I'm doing is we had to go and change some information, like maybe we updated a pump. The basement will show one. If there's two in the basement, it'll show both of them. You just pick that one, and then you can change the parameters, change the customer number, change any of that information that you need to. That's not used very often. Tim, how often do you think you guys use that? Is it?
I mean, we go into an iBasement, every house we go to that already has one in, we usually go into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to make sure the settings are right.
Yeah,
And
not
change
one
your
more.
email, it's not a defunct.
Well, you
email.
check the cycles and stuff too, how much usage is on it.
Yep.
It's okay, you know.
Okay.
Any questions on that portion?
So Chris, if any of them need any help while they're out in the field or before or anything, who call you?
Yep. I try to pick up my phone on any call that comes in. As long as it doesn't say spam, I'm picking it up, or if I'm not on another call. Okay, so it's you can ask almost ask Dave, any of the techs out there. Very rarely do you not get me picking up the phone, and most of the time when that technician's calling, there may be a little bit of frustration with whatever. And it's normally the Wi-Fi password, so feel free to give me a call.
And he will answer.
What's your number?
Sundays, any day.
203 500 1030. Relatively
203,
simple. The only
500.
easier phone number I've ever seen is John's back there.
Mine's
John
easy.
Rivers. I just got his phone. So I'll go through some options with that. If the iBasement keeps losing connection for whatever reason, routers are getting pretty advanced. And there's a lot of different programming homeowners can do with it now, which sometimes is good or bad. And then power failures is the other side of it.
Will it connect to a 5 gigahertz network?
It will
or
not.
Only connects to a 2.4.
A 2.4.
So in my house I couldn't use it.
Almost every router has a 2.4.
I'm
Router, if it takes you more than 5 minutes to set it up, I will be shocked. The first time I set it up, it took me less than 5 minutes. Any of the issues you're having with complicated routers, like Johnny was just talking about, buy 3 or 4 of them, put them in the warehouse, keep one in the truck, just have it there. All you have to do is take the Ethernet cable out from their existing router, put it in on this router, and plug in the AC power, and it's fixed. Then you just connect to that. There's a lot of things that mitigates. It mitigates some security features that are quite extravagant on some routers, so your iBasement can connect to that. You can also, if you're having a problem with the signal strength, this typically has a better signal strength than a lot of what the carriers give you for routers. They're kind of shady in a lot of circumstances. So this has got a little bit of a increased signal strength. You can also add a 10, 20, 25 foot Ethernet cable and move it in a different place in the house to get better signal. This just rules out all trying to troubleshoot and figure out different things. And for 25 bucks, it's worth having it in the truck.
What's the manufacturer?
Linksys.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, just and this isn't the only one you can use. this is just the cheapest that works well that we've seen.
We're at 100, yeah.
Yeah, probably even more than that.
Probably more. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's very
Is that
rare.
how many routers we bought, Mike? And 1,400
I think I've ordered them twice. A
That's
couple
what I'm saying.
dozen we bought it
$24.
out of all the ones.
Out of
Yeah, yours is
1,400
one.
units installed.
Yeah, yours is one,
I
but
can
so
be the guy
22 units.
that has a 18 character password. You're gonna run into that IT guy who's gonna think that he's doing the right thing and bulletproof his router and make it pop, and that's the perfect solution.
Yeah.
So I've had some of those. I've had some of those really complex towers where technicians couldn't get it connected. And I go out there, I meet an actual technician from that provider, and they'll just create another network on that tower.
So they do the same
And
thing.
then I connect.
Whatever works the best. The other side of this is the power failures. If you've got a customer that loses power quite frequently, first of all, talk to them about a generator, number one. Number two, this is an option. It's a small battery backup, between 50, 60 bucks. Okay, you literally plug it into the AC power of the home, and then you plug their router into this. And then if the ibasement has a battery if the pump has a battery backup on it, and then the router has a battery backup on it, the customer's still gonna get their notifications, because there's power to the main portions of that system. Okay, this is kind of a weak link in the homeowner's Wi-Fi setup. So plus the
Tied into the ibasement, that battery backup will keep the
It'll keep them
ibasement
dry, but
running.
it won't alert because the Wi-Fi goes down.
Yeah, if the Wi-Fi's down, you
That's
get.
when the Wi-Fi comes back up.
correct.
Yeah, so but so is
After the
everything else in their
fact.
house.
Yeah.
So is everything else in their smart house. But if you call your provider, they actually have battery backups for their modems that sometimes they give you for free if you kind of give them a little a little pushback just from your provider. Like Xfinity gave me mine.
Yeah, they give me mine.
I didn't charge.
My router comes
for
with
it.
one, yeah.
There's a number of contractors that are using this, and they charge 100, 150 bucks for the inverter, so they make a little profit on it. And if it takes you more than 15 seconds to install it, I'll be shocked. It's literally just unplugging one. and plugging
Chris, those routers that you showed before, 25 bucks on Amazon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
what
he
I'm
said.
saying.
Yeah, free delivery.
Yeah, the slide I have is a little older, for 30. Yes.
When you lose power, you're supposed to get something on your phone that says power lost, or does it say system not connected?
It says power failure.
Power failure.
I'll go in.
AC.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll show a power failure alert, and it'll send out to the. As long as the Wi-Fi is up long enough to send that out, that'll work. If the Wi-Fi goes down too quick, that's where this comes in. If you've got a client that this happens to regularly, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Most modern routers hold a capacitor charge for about 30 to 40 seconds, and that's usually enough for the ibasement to get out.
There's so many different types of routers, and they work. Some have a little bit longer, some a little bit shorter. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This fixes it so it works all the time. The only exception to that, some carriers require power to be able to use the internet through it. I'm trying to think of what carriers those are off the top of my head, and I can't remember.
Cable carries its own power at 14.4 volts to the power for the cable itself. So.
Most will work with a power failure as long as there's not a damage on that line. Okay.
If you have a booster, so like if you have a booster on your cable, so the line coming in, if you get a weak signal and they put a booster because it just weak signal,
Powers.
that's where it can go down as well. Because you can have a battery backup on your modem, and then the booster that they plugged into your house, once the booster goes down, the signal's too weak, it can't squeak anything out. So there's another variable there. That's rare.
There's a lot of variables across the board. What I'm showing you is fixing 99.9% of the time, give or take. And again, there's so many different variables to it. When you're going in, it's also nice to see the alerts coming in. You can go into idatabasement.com. So when you sign into there, you can just go up to the alerts portion of it. You can go down to customers. And I'll pick on Dave because we've been picking on Dave for a little bit. So you can go in and you can see all the iBasements you have installed that you have registered onto idatabasement.com. You can get the MAC addresses, you can search. You can search via name, you can search via customer ID, MAC address, even address. Okay. And then basically, if you want to see the alerts from whatever given ibasement, you just copy the whatever you want. MAC address works easiest. Go into view alerts.
You'll be able to see all the history.
And you'll be able to see the history of the alerts that have come through. See test, low battery, in this particular circumstance. Probably this was all during the install or
What's the customer ID on that one? That 51?
You got them all worried.
Is that 51?
it is customer number, here, I'll tell you in a second. Okay, which will mean it'll turn on either one of the pumps, if there's only one installed, or both the pumps if there's two installed. A pump failure, if you get a pump failure alert, it means that the pump ran outside of its normal amperage range. Okay, if there was power failures or something going on about the same time, you can get a pump failure alert, and it's basically because of the power coming off of the AC outlet. Power failures, just that. The AC power has gone down. Testing, it's a weekly test, like I said. Low battery, it means that the amperage went below 10.5 volts. Okay, typically that's when the backup pump is being used. And then backup notification. Backup pump is whenever that float goes up on the backup pump, it's going to send out a notification. Okay, maybe it's a lot of water, high demand. It could be a failure on the primary pump for whatever reason, but that notifies you and the customer as well. This is basically what the alerts will look like as you go into ibasement. It'll show you the MAC address, the customer number, show you what's installed there, how many cycles. A lot of times you'll have a whole lot of cycles and still maybe 1 or 2 hours on it. It takes a lot of cycles to get 1 hour of pumping time, so it does take quite a bit. Tests will come through. It'll show each pump's okay. It'll show the battery voltage. Battery voltage, we're typically looking 12.5 to 13.5 while it's under, while the inverter's charging the battery. You'll see that drop if the battery backup's being used. And then a high water flow. That is something, when you see the high water flow, that it could be both pumps are pumping fine and there's just a lot of water coming in. It's something definitely to take a look at. That's one you want to get out to quicker. Contact the customer if you see it. Okay. What do you guys have for questions?
Excellent job.
Thank you.
I love the new app. It makes it so much easier.
Can I order 500?
You can order
Sure.
696 if you want, sir.
You can order more than that. I'll figure out a way to get them.
What I like is the speed. That was pretty much.
Yeah.
So, if anyone tried it before, the old way of connecting the Wi-Fi portions of it, it took a lot longer. You had to remember a lot more. It was a little glitchy in certain aspects. Very few times do you end up having any glitches, and if you just power up and power down, that typically takes care of any of that.
Yeah, before.
I want to, I know we got to move along because there's other stuff, but I want to thank Tony for all this work that you've done over these years to produce this. Thank you very much.
I drive him nuts. And I drove him nuts when I was still learning all this, but it's very rarely do I have to call now, but when it does, it's kind of a unique circumstance.
Yes, it does.
And
The case is on the way.
Having that QR code, typing in a MAC address and IP address, if you just miss one digit, that's it. The QR code allows that seamless accuracy to continue to go. So that's awesome.
Really, it's nice.
So normally we would have a couple more things to present. We ran a little bit late this morning, pushed